So for while loops, you already saw an example for a while loop in the slides. This is basically a simple example printing the numbers from 0 to 4, since once we get to 5, basically this condition is not true anymore, so we exit the while loop. And remember, we talked about this way of actually writing the addition. This is an abbreviated or the abridged version of count is equal to count plus 1. So we're adding 1 to the count in every iteration. So for an example that is a little bit more comprehensive, I can probably write a function like this, which basically does the countdown for a given input. I wouldn't call that it's more comprehensive, but it's a little bit, I guess, different or an extra example. So if I do print, actually this function doesn't even need a print, since I'm not returning anything, I'm just printing. So it takes the input while the input is greater than 0, it prints the input, and this is n is equal to n minus 1. If it still is a little not easy for you to see how this works, basically subtracting a value, checks the condition. If it's still greater than 0, print the value, and keeps going until we get to a point that n is not greater than 0. So if I run that, this basically gives me a rundown or countdown from 5 to 1. For another example, if you want to combine those specific statements like break, imagine I have a function like this, sum until 0. Clearly I'm not being very creative with naming the functions, but I think they kind of explain a little bit about what they do, at least when we name them this way. So what does this do? It basically doesn't really take any input, right? I can call the function, and I'm doing this because I want to show you the whole input statement in Python. So when I run this, I call the function. Well, total is defined as just a variable 0. While true, see what I did there? This is what they call an infinite while loop I'm defining here. Instead of putting a condition there and then changing the condition within my while loop, what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, this condition is always true, so doesn't matter how many times you check that, it's always true. Then I'm asking for an input number, and this statement in Python input, this is the general syntax. You just say input and then put the string that you want to be printed for the user, and it waits there for the user to type a number. And specifically, I'm converting the input into an integer, right? So whatever the user puts, even if they put 16.7, I convert it to an integer, and I take just the whole number and discard the decimal points. That would be my num, and then I'll check if the num is equal to 0, break the loop, while loop, and get out of the while loop. If it's not, add the number to the total, which is 0, right? So this becomes total is equal to total plus num, and then return the total if you're out of a while loop. If you're not, go back and continue this process until num is equal to 0, and we kind of get to the point that we can break out of the loop, right? Let's run this. So I'm running this now, calling the function. On my terminal, I get a statement asking to enter a number, 0 to stop, any other number it continues. So if I put 5, nothing happens, right? Because it comes here, checks if it's 0. If it's not, so it's not in this case, it jumps. It says total is equal to total plus num, and that's pretty much it. Let's put 10, let's put 20, let's put 100, and then if I put 0, it stops and it gives me the total number. Like all these numbers I put, 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 20 is 35, and I get 135. So this might have been a little bit of a twisted example, but I wanted to combine a couple of things. First is input command. So if you want to get input from the user in your code, you use input and some string. Then break statement, which you can use within your while loop. And you didn't have to specifically define an infinite while loop, but I wanted you to see also an infinite while loop, which basically the statement is hard coded as true, so it never changes. And then we check a specific statement or condition within our loop to break out of the while loop whenever that condition is true. Right? So hopefully this kind of gives you a general sense of when a break can be used. It breaks out of the most inner loop. So if I had a for loop outside this, I would have still be going through the for loop. And then how to get the input from user for various purposes. In this case, just a number, and I kind of converted it through the int function. Int converts any input value. So an example, if I put int 16.4, right, this returns 16. If I get 16.9, it gets 16. It returns 16. So int just converts the number into an integer. I wanted to make sure that my input is an integer for this specific operation.